Welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Thursday, July 11th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White and Chris Towers. Today on the show, Framber Valdez had a very interesting start. Plus, we have 3 pitchers on the rise. I have 3 hitter questions for the guys and much more. But let's jump in.
Can you believe it? Wow.
All right, Chris, you are up. And who is your player of the night?
It's Framber Valdez, who had a very interesting game, I think is the way you put it. And it was against the Marlins, right? So like that caveat out there, you're not going to expect 7 innings, 1 run, 10 strikeouts from Framber Valdez every time out. But he led with the curveball in this, which was an awesome pitch for him. 10 whiffs, 48% whiff rate, 41% CSW. He also threw his slider 14% of the time, which was a career high. He got 5 whiffs on, I think, 7 swings with that pitch. It was really, really good for him. The most he had thrown that pitch this season was 9 times in a start. He threw it 14 times in this start. And that's interesting because Framber Valdez's strikeout rate over the course of the season has gone down. I think it was 19% entering this start. And he had been in like the 23 to 25% range the previous couple seasons, and his slider usage had gone way down this season. It was only like 3 or 4% coming into this start. So that's a very interesting sign for a guy who, like, we never expect Framber Valdez to be an elite strikeout pitcher, but there's a difference between a 19% strikeout rate and even a 23 or 24% strikeout rate, which is merely above average. So I think that's definitely something to keep an eye on moving forward. Maybe he's rediscovered the slider feel. Maybe he just feels more confident throwing it. Whatever it is, this was a very promising start in that regard.
I agree completely. The 10 strikeouts, a season high. He had 17 whiffs on 95 pitches. I love what he did with the pitch mix in the start, leading with that curveball, throwing his slider more. He lowered the sinker usage in this start. And I know throughout his career, the sinker has kind of been, okay, that's his main pitch. That's the get me over pitch. You know, the fastball that he relies on, and then he kind of mixes in the secondaries. But his sinker has gotten hit really, really hard this year. Each of Framber Valdez's curve, changeup, and slider have actually performed very, very well. So him leaning more on those pitches and then having a great start, albeit up against the Marlins, I thought it was very, very encouraging, and hopefully Framber Valdez can build off of this. Scott, over to you for your player of the night.
I'm going to go with Tobias Myers, who I believe had the second most impressive start of the day. He went 8 shutout innings against the Pirates, so favorable matchup like Valdez. But obviously, Tobias Myers is not somebody who we have given much thought to in fantasy, even as he's had a smattering of impressive starts for the Brewers here. He had 12 whiffs on 103 pitches. But I do think it is worth looking a little deeper into him because of that smattering. Is it just a young pitcher catching the league by surprise and eventually it's all going to fall back on him? Yeah, maybe. I mean, the ERA estimators don't love Tobias Myers. He's outperformed them. But if you look at the individual pitches, it's a little like Reese Olson, where he has a slider and a changeup, and they're his 3rd and 4th most thrown pitch. So like he's not throwing them a ton. But the characteristics, the results on them are amazing. His slider, which he threw a little more in this start, 25% versus the usual 18%. Has a 182 batting average against and a 33% whiff rate. His changeup, which he throws about 12% of the time, has an 095 batting average and a 42% whiff rate. It's not common to find a pitcher with 2 pitches with numbers that good. And it leads me to wonder if Tobias Myers were to emphasize those pitches a little more, might the success he's had stick? Might he become somebody who is worth rostering in fantasy? I think it's possible. I think it's worth monitoring his progress, and we'll see where it goes from here.
I am not interested in Tobias Myers. And that shouldn't be surprising. I haven't been interested in any pitcher who has been good this season, it feels like. So why would we change that with this guy? Like I hate how dismissive I've been of these Tobias Myers types because there've been so many of them and they've had so much success. 33rd out of 68 pitchers. If he had qualified, he would rank 33rd out of 68 qualifiers in walk rate. He would rank 46th out of 68 in strikeout rate. He would have the 22nd highest fly ball rate. And his quality of contact metrics are pretty much all below average. And that would all be bad enough, except he also has like miserable numbers in the high minors, like a 4.52 ERA at AA, a 5.67 ERA in 40 appearances at AAA.
Check out those strikeout rates, though.
Yeah, I mean, the strikeout rates they were good at AA, pretty bad at AAA once you account. I think the per inning numbers are inflated by how poorly he pitched. His strikeout rate in AAA was only 21%. So, like the note about the slider and changeup and their characteristics, that seems like a good sign, and maybe there's a path to unlocking something more. But I'll just say, in order for me to be interested in Tobias Myers, I think he would have to be a very different pitcher than the one he has been so far. Results have been great. 2 starts of 8 shutout innings this season. That's remarkable, but I don't think it's going to last.
7 starts since the beginning of June for Tobias Myers, a 1.79 ERA, a .93 whip, 35 strikeouts over 45 and a third. He's just kind of middling at everything is what I saw. He doesn't excel at strikeouts. Command looks okay. He doesn't get a bunch of ground balls. It's one of those where, like you said, Scott, maybe he's kind of catching the league by surprise. If you picked him up, I think I would just kind of stick with it as long as he's hot and he's pitching this well. And then, okay, if it falls off the rails, just get rid of him. But
yeah, I mean, I don't even know that I'd go that far. I'm just saying keep an eye on him. That's all I'm saying.
Well, he's already like
he's up to
60% rostered. Yeah. So
people have added him.
In CBS leagues. Yeah. CBS overinflates pitcher rostership. You guys know this.
All right. Well, that was Tobias Myers. Let's talk about my player of the night. That is going to be Alec Burleson, who just continues to mash across the doubleheader here on Wednesday. 2 for 8 with his 15th home run. He added 2 runs and 3 RBI. Last 21 games, he is batting .313 with 6 homers, 24 RBI, and 5 steals. Overall, he's up to a .282 batting average, a .790 OPS. He's got some pop. He's got some speed. This was part of a segment for later, 3 hitter questions, but I'll throw it your way. Is Alec Burleson a stud? Because he is playing one right now.
I mean, if I thought he was a stud, I'd rank him like a stud. So, no. But I like Alec Burleson. I've liked Alec Burleson for a long time. I'm glad he's finally living up to his potential. I just think to be a stud in fantasy, generally you either have to walk at a fair clip or steal bases. I guess he has stolen a decent number of bases, but not in a way that's believable. And I don't think his power is like, I don't think he genuinely has 30 homer power. Mm-hmm. The max exit, the average exit velocity is good. I think he's a good hitter in general, but I don't think he's somebody who's going to deliver big home run totals with consistency, more like decent home run totals. I'm trying to think of a good comp.
Yeah, I was trying to think of one, and it's like,
I was thinking like a Lourdes Gurriel.
I think it could be better than that.
Like a 275, 20 homer, 10 steal kind of guy. Something like that.
Yeah.
I think you can
hope for a better batting average.
Right.
But like Lourdes Gurriel last year hit 261, 24 homers, 5 steals. I would say you would hope for more steals because he has 7 already, but
10th percentile
sprint speed is that makes it hard to believe. But like Gurriel's had some really useful seasons, and I think Alec Burleson can be useful, but yeah, I think there's he's probably a little over his head right now.
I guess maybe I'm thinking, well, no, I don't think Brian Reynolds is
That's
a
not bad
great
either.
comp either.
That could be a high-end comp
Because he does get on base at a decent clip. While Burleson just doesn't walk much at all.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a perfect one, but I think in terms of what his value could be to fantasy, it could be more in that range.
That's not bad. Yeah, I could see that being like Gurriel is kind of the, if everything just kind of works out normally, the way things have played out so far for Burleson, but the high-end comp could be, all right, if it all works out, like, he really excels and kind of keeps up this pace, then maybe he could turn into a Brian Reynolds type. Again, that is Alec Burleson. To answer my own question, I don't think he's a stud either, but I think he's a viable fantasy option, and he's playing really well right now with.
How about Gleyber Torres prior to this season? Like, not the year that he destroyed Baltimore, but the previous couple seasons where he was hitting 260, 275, 25 homers, 10 to 13 stolen bases. Like, that's a really useful player.
Right.
It's
must start.
Yeah, it's a must. I think it's probably a low end number 2, high end number 3 outfielder. And that's really valuable.
And that's about where I rank Burleson.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Thanks to everyone for watching live. We do appreciate you. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. YouTube.com/fantasybaseball today. And a reminder that you can listen to both this podcast and our 5-minute podcast, Fantasy Baseball Today in 5, on Spotify. If you're watching, there's a QR code. You can scan that, and that will take you right to our FBT feed on Spotify. Let's take our first break. When we return, the news and notes right after this.
Lord, disaster! Mark number 1, high speeds across the board. Time has come to decide the top team of the year. The battle is on.
Welcome back in. Let's talk news and notes. And an MRI on Zack Wheeler's back revealed no structural damage. It's uncertain whether he'll make his next start on Sunday. Per Rob Thompson, quote, "We're going to be very cautious with him. We'll know Thursday." And that was referring to Wheeler's status for Sunday. It wouldn't surprise me. Don't really push him. You're going into the All-Star break. So if you're planning on a 2-start week for Wheeler, my guess is that it won't happen, but we will find out tomorrow. Yordan Alvarez was removed Wednesday due to right hip tightness. He is day-to-day. Bryce Harper was out of the lineup Wednesday with a bruised glove hand. He was hit by a line drive on Tuesday. It was not related to the hamstring injury, which he previously dealt with. Bobby Miller was optioned to the minors. The team didn't specifically say that Miller would go to AAA. It's possible that he's going to the Dodgers facility to work on his mechanics. It's also possible that he got sent down so that they can get an extra reliever on their roster and that he'll be back right after the All-Star break. Many different scenarios here. How do you guys read Bobby Miller getting sent down?
So did you guys see the Walker Buehler stuff today? I don't know if that's, we've got that in the notes a little later, but he's like away from the team working on his mechanics. And so I think they're willing to experiment and let players do what's comfortable when they're struggling to try to find some answers. And so, whether Bobby Miller goes down and pitches at AAA or he goes to the team's complex and, just puts in side work, my guess is he's not going to be gone long. And they're, as soon as he looks like himself, wherever he's pitching, I think we'll see him back. But I don't think it's a guarantee that he's just back in 15 days or, 12 days, whatever it would be. Because he's looked really, really bad. So he needs to, he has a lot to prove, I think, to the Dodgers and obviously to us before we trust him again. That being said, I would prefer to hold on to him. My preference is, we know Bobby Miller has significant upside. We know he has top 20 starting pitcher upside. I would prefer not to throw that away for when a guy is not currently hurt.
You guys let me know if I overreacted, because this news came out when I was updating the rankings here on Wednesday. I moved Bobby Miller down to SP 68.
I didn't move him at all. I mean, I moved him already because of how he performed.
Right.
but I didn't move him additionally with this news because I think, yeah, like Chris said, I don't think he's going to be gone long. He's not the first nor the last pitcher with options to be demoted heading into the All-Star break. And I still think everything we said about his upside, but unusability in the moment still applies.
Yeah, I moved him down to 57, which is like kind of a turning point in my rankings between like guys I believe in and guys I don't really believe in, but who have good numbers. So that's where like Gavin Stone and Reynaldo Lopez, I would still rather have Bobby Miller than those guys. Although obviously if you were talking about trades, that would be a tough one, but I still think the upside is significantly higher for Bobby Miller.
And he's 74th for me for what it's worth.
Bobby Miller?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, you moved him down.
So I have him the lowest. Yeah.
Yeah. I moved him just behind Shane Baz, Reese Olson, Gavin Williams, Brian Wu, all young pitchers who I think have pretty good upside as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like, oh, I'm just, throwing them behind some scrubs or anything, but those are other pitchers that I'm interested in as well. So
this is where
74 puts him behind Eric Fetty, Brady Singer, Gavin Stone, Zach Eflin. Like, we're not talking bad pitchers.
Yeah. No,
Right.
I would say this is where you see we are ranking rest of season. And I'm inclined to put a guy with this kind of upside higher, even though right now, certainly I'd rather have Reynaldo Lopez or Gavin Stone. For the next month, I would rather have those guys. But I still think over the long run, Bobby Miller is the better pitcher.
Yeah, it gets tricky when putting together the rankings because yes, you're answering the question who's going to be best rest of season. But I always feel like when you get to a point low enough in the rankings that it's a question of roster ability. I want my rankings to reflect who I'm most likely to roster because I imagine that's how people are using my rankings. Mm-hmm. Oh, he has Gavin Stone ahead of Bobby Miller, so I should drop Bobby Miller for Gavin Stone. Yes, I would recommend you do that.
Mm-hmm. The disaster season continues for Bo Bichette, who was removed Wednesday due to right calf soreness. Cody Bellinger left after getting hit by a pitch in the hand, a 97-mile-per-hour sinker. And, I feel like, I don't know. I say this every year. I feel like this is happening more than ever before. I don't know if it actually is or not, but just
I've had the same feeling. I've had the same feeling. Like every day, it feels like a couple guys are getting their wrists x-rayed.
Right. Yeah. It's happening a lot this season. Weird. Matt McClain has started swinging a bat and is hoping to begin a rehab assignment August 12th. He's going to need extended rehab. So we're looking at late August, maybe even early September. It's, at that point, we're running out of time for Matt McClain to make a difference this year in fantasy. Giancarlo Stanton could skip a rehab assignment and return from the IL shortly after the All-Star break. He is currently out with a strained left hamstring. Dodgers manager Dave Roberts said Walker Buehler continues to work on his mechanics, which we mentioned earlier. Dave Roberts added, quote, "I can say there's progress, but I really can't speak intelligently what that progress is."
Yeah, he's away from the team. So that's kind of, I think, the key takeaway there is they're optimistic, but he's not pitching for the team right now. So I guess they just can't see what he looks like.
TJ Friedl is trending toward a return from the IL in 7 to 10 days after the All-Star break. He's 59% rostered if you're looking for an outfielder to stash. Speaking of stashes, Jeffrey Springs completed 4 innings for the second consecutive rehab start on Tuesday. He allowed 3 runs, 2 of those earned with 2 strikeouts. He is 50% rostered. I feel like I ask you guys this all the time, but how do you rank Kershaw, Springs, and Robbie Ray? Because it feels like those 3 are the closest.
So maybe. I just put together new IL stash rankings, first time in almost a month. So I can answer this with more confidence than ever.
That's good because people have been tweeting me asking for the stash rankings.
Yeah, me too. Jeffrey Springs, Clayton Kershaw, Robbie Ray.
That is the exact order I ranked them today. So yeah,
I think so as well. Yeah.
I'm doing something right. Jimmy Garcia has had his rehab appearance delayed 2 days in a row due to neck stiffness. Gabriel Moreno was scratched from the lineup due to lower back tightness. Luis Campusano has started just once in 5 games since returning from the IL. And if that trend continues, Campusano will be pretty hard to roster even in 2-catcher leagues. And it is good news for Kyle Higashioka if you picked him up in some of those deeper 2-catcher formats. The Rays plan to bring Drew Rasmussen back as a reliever this season, which kills any excitement for his fantasy value. We recently just, I think it was yesterday, we brought him up for the first time. Reed Garrett was placed in the IL with right elbow inflammation, and it's a sad day as Adam Major was optioned back to AAA. I guess he'll just have to, I don't know, host a fantasy football podcast in the meantime or something like that.
He was dead to me once I found out his name was pronounced Major instead of Mazer. It was over in my mind at that point.
Yeah. We have one. Go ahead.
Can I go back to one thing?
Yes.
This is the 4th highest hit by pitch rate season in MLB history.
Okay.
The previous 3 highest were 2020, 2021, and 2023. The 5th highest was 2022.
All right.
So it is becoming an increasingly common thing, but it's also like, 1.2% of plate appearances end with hit by pitches. So it's not especially common still.
That coincides with the sticky substance ban, doesn't it?
Yep. And it also coincides.
No, not really. Kind
No?
of, but not really.
When was that?
The sticky substance crackdown was 2022, right?
I thought it was 2021. But
I thought it was
2020 was the highest ever, but it's been above 1% each of the past 7 seasons.
Nobody
and
ever
it's been
counts.
rising, for the last couple of
Right.
So,
I'm just saying the era where sticky substances were banned is also the era where consistently hit by pitches has been higher.
I don't think that's it.
It probably correlates more with velocity than anything. And that's what we have more of over the past decade, right? It's you throw harder, you don't really know where it's going kind of thing. Things happen, players get hit by pitches.
I mean, that was the pitcher's big concern when it was announced is you're going to get guys hurt by banning sticky substances. So it would.
That's true.
I don't know why it's such a far-fetched theory.
I wouldn't say it's a far-fetched theory. It was 1.4% in 2018. It's 1.4% in the change over the past 7 years doesn't really seem to coincide with the sticky substance ban. That's what I would say.
Fair enough. Let's move on. One prospect update. D-backs shortstop prospect Jordan Lawler recently aggravated his strained left hamstring and will be sidelined an additional 6 to 8 weeks. Brutal year for the development of Jordan Lawler, who dealt with, I believe it was a broken thumb early on and a strained hamstring, and now he re-injured that same hamstring. Last news item for those watching us live, I apologize. My face is extremely red, and I have seen some comments about it, and I know that it's there. I keep doing this thing where every Wednesday I go out to play pickleball, and I don't put any lotion on my face, and it
just put sunscreen on.
I don't know what I'm doing.
Not just because of the redness; it's for your health.
I know. I forget. I don't know what's going on, but yeah, that's why I look like a tomato. That's exactly why. All right, let's talk waiver wire pitchers. Not sure if he's out there in any leagues anymore. He's up to 79% rostered, and honestly,
he's out there in some leagues.
Yeah. But he hasn't been great recently anyway. This start was interesting for Luis Severino. A quality start up against the Nationals. 6 1/3 innings, 2 runs, 3 walks to 4 strikeouts, only 9 whiffs on 92 pitches. But he completely changed his pitch mix. He led with the sweeper. He threw it 23% of the time. That was only 12% entering the start. He lowered his sinker and fastball usage. He threw a lot more traditional sliders in this start as well. I just wonder if maybe this can lead to more whiffs in the future, even though it didn't happen here. What do you guys think?
I think it's a mark of a guy who's searching for it. Because when he was having some success earlier this season, he had reinvented himself as a ground ball pitcher. It's Luis Severino we're talking about, which it's reasonable to be skeptical that it would work. That's a pretty big transformation. But it was working. I've noticed recently the ground ball rate has kind of become middling. It's regressed and the success has stopped. So I'm just not sure he's capable of missing bats like he used to. I had him as my last weekend stock watch. I had Luis Severino as one of the fallers, and I think he's over rostered at 79%.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
I
going to
think
be
he's
my
just a
next
guy.
question. Yeah, he's gone from an add to a potential drop, right? I guess in that way.
Yep.
All right, let's talk about some other names in shallower leagues. Reese Olson, a quality start up against the Guardians, 6 innings, 3 runs, 3 strikeouts, but did have 12 whiffs on 95 pitches. We already spoke about Tobias Myers, who had a great start. Drew Thorpe turned in his 4th straight quality start up against the Twins this time. 6 innings, 2 runs, 1 walk, only 1 strikeout, 5 whiffs on 76 pitches. I don't know if he has anything outside of that changeup. It doesn't look like it. But how would you guys rank Olson, Tobias Myers, and Drew Thorpe? And would you drop Severino for any of those?
Olson's in a different category as far as I'm concerned. The others are, I could take him or leave him. I'd rather leave him if I had better choices. But ranking them and how rostered they should be, you said Severino, Tobias Myers, and who was the third one?
It was Drew Thorpe.
You didn't remember. Severino, Myers, Thorpe.
I think I'd go Severino, Thorpe, Myers.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, was there anything optimistic about this Drew Thorpe start?
No, it was discouraging as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
like
he just doesn't have anything except the changeup.
Yeah.
And this was a day where the changeup wasn't really on. And so I think he was lucky to get through it, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
All right.
Against a good Twins lineup.
Some names in deeper leagues. Alec Marsh turned in a quality start at the Cardinals, 6 innings, 3 runs. He had 8 strikeouts with 16 whiffs on 101 pitches. JP Sears, a strong start at the Red Sox. Where did this come from? 5 2/3, 1 run, 8 strikeouts, 20 whiffs on 114 pitches for JP Sears. Kyle Freeland, I know it's Kyle Freeland, and it's the Rockies. He's pitching well since returning from the IL at the Reds, 6 2/3, 2 runs allowed, 9 strikeouts, 13 whiffs on 93 pitches. 10 of those came on the curveball. Any interest here? Deeper leagues, Kyle Freeland, JP Sears, Alec Marsh.
I mean, the only moderately interesting thing about Kyle Freeland early on this season was that he was throwing harder and was getting disastrous results. And now his velocity's back down. It's not quite where it was last year. It's still, a 2 miles per hour up, but I don't know. Maybe there's a sweet spot where throwing 92, he stinks, but throwing 91, he's good. I don't know. Either way, he plays half his games at Coors Field, so I don't think it matters.
Yeah, probably not. I'll point out that his curveball has gotten whiffs at a ridiculous rate, which even in this start, I mean, that ridiculous whiff rate's going to go up after this one. And so
10 on 16 swings, yeah.
I'm not really seeing what's changed with it for Freeland, and building an arsenal around a curveball, playing half your games at Coors Field, I don't think is going to lead to much success anyway. So long story short, I think we can continue to ignore Kyle Freeland, just as Chris said.
Did want to point out with Alec Marsh that he changed his pitch mix in this start. He upped the slider usage. He faded the sweeper. I don't know. Maybe it's a classification issue. Nonetheless, we said this with Tobias Myers. Individual pitch results look pretty good. Same thing with Alec Marsh. His 4-seam, his sweeper, his curve, they all look like either good to very good pitches, but the results haven't been there. So, would throw it out there.
It's I think like a 3-start trend of him upping his 4-seamer use considerably. It's close to 50% in this one, and like you said, it's been a really effective 4-seamer. It has a 188 batting average against. So it's kind of reminiscent of Jake Irvin in that way to me. But yeah, I think overall I'm still pretty skeptical. It's just, I guess, kind of like Tobias Myers, it wouldn't be the most shocking thing to me if Marsh became respectable for fantasy.
Yeah, the thing I struggle with there is just we saw an even better start earlier in the year against the Yankees. I think he had like an 11 strikeout start against the Yankees.
Yeah.
And immediately was a complete non-factor for fantasy. And so that's one where it's like, I don't think I'm going to do the fool me twice thing on this one.
Fair enough. Let's talk waiver wire hitters. And Mark Vientos, we talk about him every day. Keeps on hitting 2 for 3 with a walk, 2 doubles, a run, and an RBI. He is up to a 293 batting average with an 897 OPS. The only thing with Vientos is I don't feel like I could get him any higher in the rankings. Like he's just behind guys that are just serviceable, like Candelario and Matt Chapman. And I know Christopher Morel has kind of, been bad recently, but we still like him.
He's just been bad. We can just say, like, I had Chris Morel on my second half breakouts list, so I still have some hope, but like his OPS starts with a 6, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, would you drop him for Vientos?
I do have Vientos ranked 1 spot ahead of him, so sure. I agree. Like Vientos is 17th for me at third base, and I could move him to 14 without really changing my opinion on him or any of the players ranked ahead of him. After that, it would be harder. But I think it'd be okay to drop Christopher Morel, especially in a points league. I think that'd be fine.
You know what's funny though, and I've pointed that out before. For as bad as Morel's numbers look, his actual fantasy point production isn't so bad. He's outscored Austin Riley this year. He's right in between Machado and Riley in terms of total fantasy points, which is on the verge of dropping outside the top 20 at third base. There are some kind of obscure third basemen who have outscored Riley and Machado this year, but it's still kind of funny that Morel's numbers could be that bad. And if you've just been starting him this whole time in a points league, you probably haven't noticed that much.
Yeah. But with Vientos in particular, like there's a little bit of luck here with what he's doing, like luck or positive variance. I don't know whatever term you want to use. Like he has a 358 expected WOBA. He has a 374 actual WOBA. The strikeout rate, 24%. Is kind of hard to square with how much he swings and misses, although the overall whiff rate down from 37 to 33%. The in zone whiff rate, or the in zone contact rate, I guess is the way we usually phrase it, is up from 72 to 76%. Still bad, but moving from disaster to playable. And given how hard he hits the ball, given that his overall plate discipline has improved. He's swinging at more pitches in the strike zone, swinging at fewer pitches out of the strike zone, without sacrificing quality of contact. In fact, the quality of contact's even better. I think Mark Vientos is under rostered at 71%.
Yeah. The zone contact is something that stood out to me because 76.5% is actually pretty bad, but it could be something where, he kind of changes his approach with 2 strikes and, he's just done a better job in that way. Or maybe a month from now, his strikeout rate will be 30%. I mean, that's not out of the realm of possibility. We will see where he goes from here.
And, I don't want to overrate zone contact rate either. I mean, Matt Olson is generally below 80%, and he's Matt Olson. When you have big time power like that, you can swing and miss in the zone some.
I just remember last year it was, I think Zach Geloff was around 75% for most of the season. And we were like, yeah, it's bad, but he succeeded. And then he came in this year and now he's striking out over 30% of the time. So.
But just for some context. Go ahead.
I mean, it's another interesting data point, but it doesn't say everything on its own because no data point does. And if you just sort league leaders and zone contact rate by the highest and then by the lowest, you'll find good players on each of those lists.
And last year, his 72% mark would have been a bottom 3 mark in baseball. Now, it's still not great, but it's like just ahead of Michael Busch and just ahead of Dansby Swanson, and Teoscar Hernandez is lower, and Rafael Devers is surprisingly lower. Some guys who strike out a ton, like Brent Rooker, is a little higher than him, but also like Shohei Ohtani, who doesn't really strike out very much at all, is 1% ahead of him. So I think it's all the combinations, right? And it's the fact that while he is still swinging and missing too much overall, the fact that he's swinging at fewer pitches outside of the strike zone, that's where more of the swings and misses live. And so, avoiding that, I think is as big of a deal as, cutting the strikeout or the swinging strike rate.
So are we a Mark Vientos podcast? Like, do we all generally like him?
100%.
Yeah. I mean, I have him like 17th at third base. I don't know if that
higher
makes
than
me
I
a Mark
pretty
Vientos guy, but I'm buying in. I think he should be, based on how well he's played since he returned in mid-May. I think Mark Vientos should just be universally rostered until he slows down.
Fair enough. Let's move on to Zach Neto, who continues his fine season. 3 for 4 with his 12th home run, 2 runs, 3 RBI. He has 12 homers and 14 steals on the year. He's 50% rostered. I just don't know that number needs to be higher. And I've been the Zach Neto apologist. Me, Chris too. I know you like him. But only 2.3 fantasy points per game. It's just, if he's 50% rostered, he probably just needs to be rostered in category leagues anyway, right? Zach Neto?
Yeah, I mean, he's on pace for close to 2020, but it's a really blah 2020.
Yeah, like
if you can accept that answer.
He's 13th among shortstops and home runs. He's 8th in stolen bases, but he's got a low batting average. He doesn't get a lot of the other 2 stats. So yeah, I don't think he's a points league starter at all. I think he's a middle infielder in a categories league.
Fair enough. Some names in deeper leagues, and for the second day in a row, Lawrence Butler has been picking things up. 2 for 3 with a double, a walk, a steal, and 2 RBI. His last 9 games, he's batting .345 with 3 homers and 3 steals. Max Schumann trying his best to fend off Jacob Wilson. 2 for 3 with his 9th steal, and in his last 11 games, he's batting .367 with 2 homers and 5 steals. So far, so good for Matt Wallner since getting called back up. He had a big doubleheader, 3 for 6 with his 3rd home run. He has homered in back-to-back days. Joey Loperfido had a big game, 2 for 4 with a triple, a homer, 2 runs, 2 RBI. The problem, he's only played 5 of the last 11 games for the Astros. And Geraldo Perdomo had himself a big game, 3 for 3 with 2 doubles, 2 runs, and an RBI. Again, deep league names here. But does anyone stand out? Perdomo, Loperfido, Matt Wallner, Max Schumann, and Lawrence Butler.
I mean, Butler has some pretty interesting minor league numbers, and like, I've watched a lot of bad baseball in my time as a Marlins fan, and this is like exactly the kind of guy that when your team is terrible, like the A's are, you get irrationally excited about, and then, he has a 600 OPS, but like, there are definitely tools here. He's a really good athlete. He hits the ball hard when he hits it. I don't know how much I want to buy into, what has been an 8-game stretch of him being decent. 9 games.
9 games.
I don't know. Like, I think he's in a more interesting talent than anybody here except maybe Wallner and Loperfido. I think all 3 of those guys are kind of interesting, but not much more than interesting yet.
Yeah, I would say so. I'd be curious what the Twins matchups are next week.
Mm-hmm.
See if you could catch lightning in a bottle here with Matt Wallner. But nobody has any clue what the Twins matchups are next week, because next week is the start of the second half after a 4-day break.
All right, let's take our final break. And when we return, how high is too high to rank these pitchers? Some guys that have been on quite the run. We'll talk about that right after this.
At CBS Sports Golazo Network, we're bringing you the game.
Madness of Messi arrives!
Breaking down the game.
This is unlike anything else in the world.
And changing the game.
Get it all for nil.
That means free.
Whoa.
And all day long!
24/7.
Welcome back in. How high is too high to rank these pitchers? Michael King, a tough luck loss up against the Mariners. 6 innings, 3 hits, 2 runs. One of those earned, 9 strikeouts, had 13 whiffs on 91 pitches. His velocity was up across the board. Michael King allowed 6 earned runs back on May 15th. In 10 starts since, he has a 2.54 ERA, a 1.11 whip, 68 strikeouts over 56 2/3 innings. I know tomorrow is more of the rankings talk, but kind of feels like Michael King's been pretty good for quite some time, and we probably need to move him up. Or maybe you already did. What do you think?
He is SP 48 for me.
That's pretty good.
Even
We all
higher.
have him in about the same spot.
Yeah, even higher at RP, obviously. It's interesting, and I'll admit I was very, very skeptical of Michael King, and so when he came out and stunk up the joint in April, I pretty much just wrote him off. I think I moved him outside of my top 70. And you like, if there's one criticism I get more than anything, it's that I'm not aggressive enough with my rankings moves, and so I was with Michael King, and now I regret it, and I feel stupid about it because I let my skepticism of him coming into the season. I did the confirmation bias thing. I didn't think he was going to be good. And so once he wasn't good to start the season, I just gave up on him entirely. And the thing that's tough about it is it has not come with a dramatic change in his approach. The stuff has not really been dramatically different. He's not throwing much harder. There's been maybe a little bit of a velocity gain as the season's gone on, but not really a notable one. It's just he's pitching a lot better. He's not walking everyone like he was early on. He's not giving up, 3 home runs every start like he was in the first month. So he's just executing better, and maybe that will prove unsustainable. But it's now, 2+ months of Michael King pitching sub-3 ERA. Since the start of May. You said the May 15th start, but he was really good the 2 starts prior to that. So you just take it all since May 1st. It's a sub-3 ERA with a bunch of strikeouts.
Yep.
I don't want to go too far the other way. So 48 feels like a good middle point, but I think he's certainly must roster and probably must start moving forward.
Welcome to another episode of Scott Fights His Microphone. What just happened?
See, I feel like I'm usually the one that's just randomly punching my microphone.
My foot got caught on the cord underneath my desk and yanked down on the microphone. So I think we're fine. I think we're good.
Let's talk about.
I'm podcasting barefoot, by the way.
Ooh,
Oh, I didn't need to know that, actually.
weird move.
I think I do. I think I always do.
Ah,
I think I'm always in socks. Never shoes, but always socks.
Well,
Chris, I live in South Florida. Like I don't leave the house.
Okay,
in
all
socks
right.
Usually.
I don't have central air here. My building's not well ventilated or well insulated. It's very hot in my apartment during the summer.
same.
I'm still wearing socks.
I am
'cause my wife-
podcasting in a room that does not have air conditioning.
Yeah,
So
my wife doesn't like it when I'm barefoot in the apartment. So
yeah,
I'm just saying culturally, it's a little more accepted not to wear
that's
socks.
true.
Socks
You are in Jimmy Buffett territory.
Yep, that's true. Let's talk about Christopher Sanchez, who turned in a quality start up against the Dodgers. 6 innings, 2 runs, 5 strikeouts, had 14 whiffs on 91 pitches. And I told myself, I'm going to be aggressive. I'm going to move Christopher Sanchez way up. And it wasn't high enough because Scott moved Sanchez all the way up to SP 35. And it's hard to argue with a 2.96 ERA. The whip is a little bit high, but the underlying numbers are buying it too.
Yep. I just think last time we talked about him, I think he's just good. And there was a lot of anxiety early in the year with him consciously increasing his velocity, and would it compromise his control? And for a while it seemed to, but not lately. He's been a strike throwing machine again, elite ground ball guy, just like last year. And the whip's a little high, all things considered, but part of that is just carryover from the walks being high early on. I think Christopher Sanchez, I'd put him a little less than must start, but not much.
He kind of just looks like Framber Valdez right now.
Yeah.
Like the really, really good versions of Framber Valdez when he figured out his own. I have him 32.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's been going on long enough. The stuff is really, really good. I don't see too much reason to doubt it. He's got really good quality of contact results. The strikeouts have been better as the season has gone on, although still not great. Yeah, I'm buying in.
All right. Well, You guys have inspired me. I have to move Christopher Sanchez up the rankings. One name that we might all need to move up, or maybe not. I don't know. Eric Fetty. He pitched well again up against the Twins. 5 shutout innings, 5 strikeouts. He had 16 whiffs on 90 pitches. 12 of those came on the cutter, 4 on the sweeper. He is down to a 2.99 ERA, a 1.13 whip. Less than a strikeout per inning. The ground balls are pretty good. I think it's pretty likely he gets moved to a much better team at or before the deadline. Are we all too low on Eric Fetty? What do you think?
I still think he's performed. He's overperformed, and all the ERA estimators show it. He doesn't really excel at any one thing. He's just kind of a middling pitcher. He's kind of Kyle Gibson-like, and yeah, that would have some value on a better team. But and he'll probably get moved to a better team. I agree.
I mean, there's only like one team he could get moved to that would be worse.
Right.
There's nobody worse than the White Sox. Come on.
I don't know. Didn't the Marlins just lose a series to the White Sox?
Is that true?
I generally don't know.
The White Sox have Eric Fetty and Garrett Crochet, which might make them better than the Marlins in their current state. But
God, the Marlins are 7 games better than the White Sox.
But they're
embarrassing.
Both of those assets might be moved anyway.
Oy. All right. Yeah. I hope it gets moved. The Orioles, the Dodgers look like they need a ton of pitching right now too.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling both of those teams will be pretty active. 3 hitter questions. I already got one out of the way. We spoke about Alec Burleson. Nolan Jones, a solid game here on Wednesday, 2 for 3 with a walk and a run scored. Also caught stealing. Since returning from the IL, 22 games, he's batting .239 with 2 homers, 1 steal, a 29% strikeout rate, tons of ground balls. I don't know if he's healthy. Maybe last year was a fluke. Maybe a little bit of both of those things. But overall, Nolan Jones is batting .199 with a .616 OPS. He is down to 72% rostered. Can we drop Nolan Jones?
I'm perfectly comfortable dropping Jones in a 3 outfielder league.
Yes.
And I probably already have. Anyone listening probably already has. 5 outfielder league, and you go so much deeper into the outfield pool that I think he's worth keeping around just in case. I mean, generally we're talking about roto leagues anyway with 5 outfielders, and you don't need your bench to be all that usable in a roto league if it's weekly rosters. So you can kind of just stash upside, and I think Nolan Jones is more worth stashing than, like, I don't know, Junior Caminero, some kind of prospect you could stick there instead.
Mm-hmm.
Just in case. I mean, it could turn around very quickly. I think the talent is still there, but he may not get to it this year. He has some pretty big flaws.
Yeah, he's dealt with multiple injuries throughout the year, and I remember in spring training he had a few things pop up. I think there was a slide that went wrong where he hurt his knee. I think a hit by pitch somewhere that kind of knocked him out for a few days. I just wouldn't be surprised if at the end of the season it comes out, man, Nolan Jones was never healthy or something like that. Luis Robert provided some power and speed across the doubleheader, 1 for 7 with a sock and a shoe, his 11th home run, his 8th steal. And in 32 games since coming off the IL, 9 homers, 7 steals. That also comes with a .221 batting average and a 32% strikeout rate. So, yes, the power and speed is nice. The batting average, not so nice. Do you guys think Luis Robert gets traded before the deadline?
I would guess no, but it's certainly possible.
Chris?
Agree with that.
All right, let's move on to some pitchers who had mixed results here. Tanner Bybee at the Tigers, 7 innings, 4 runs allowed, 8 strikeouts, 13 whiffs. And I noticed the velocity was down in the start. Fastball down 1.5 miles per hour. That's 2 starts in a row. The fastball velocity is down, and Tanner Bybee has given up 4 earned runs in each of those starts. Any thoughts on Tanner Bybee?
I'm more concerned about the slider, actually. This was his 2nd start in a row where it had 2 fewer inches of vertical movement. I guess I should say 2 less inches because you can have a fraction of an inch. 2 less inches of vertical move or of horizontal movement. And it got hit really hard both times. Average exit velocity against the slider in this one, 104.5. That pitch normally has like 85 mile per hour average exit velocity, a 129 batting average against. So I don't know what's gone wrong here with Bybee's slider, but to me, that's the clearest explanation for why his last couple starts have been a step in the wrong direction.
Yeah, him and Grayson Rodriguez are just like the captains of the why isn't this guy better all-stars for me. It's like we had the really good stretch for Tanner Bybee, around like mid to late June. I think he had like the really good stretch. But overall, it's like 3.77 ERA, 1.12 WHIP. The WHIP is actually pretty good, and the ERA estimators are all good. Mid threes, 3.4 to 3.7. That's probably just who he is right now. But it's like, why isn't he better? That's the thing I can't quite figure out. And the slider stuff that Scott notes, maybe that's the explanation for right now. Is that the explanation for why he's been so inconsistent all year? That's the tougher one to answer.
Bryce Miller turned in a quality start at the Padres. Kind of 6 shutout innings, 5 hits. All right, that's good. The ratio is great. 1 strikeout, 6 whiffs on 80 pitches. So, like, the overall results were fine here, but the fact that he only had 1 strikeout, that's what makes this a mixed result. Anything on Bryce Miller?
He's just kind of whatever, He's in that. He's kind of in that Ryan Pepio class, I feel like, where even his good starts are just kind of going to be pretty good. And then there's going to be some bad starts mixed in. The overall stat line should be decent, but it's just hard to get excited about Bryce Miller right now.
Yeah, it's worth noting that the Padres have the lowest strikeout rate in baseball as a team. So, tough matchup there. The fact that he only allowed 1 earned run, or actually no earned runs. Sorry. That's a very good sign. It's just, the lack of strikeouts makes him so unexciting, even if I think he can be useful. If there's an opportunity to sell him, I would. And maybe make that Miller for Miller swap. Maybe make that B Miller for B Miller swap. I would give up Bryce Miller to get Bobby Miller. I think there's more upside with the Bobby Miller.
Yeah, there probably is more upside. Yeah, it probably comes down to circumstances. Like if you need a pitcher now, you got to hold on to Bryce Miller. But if you have a lead and you want to stash for upside, I feel like you could do better though.
I think we're very close to the point, or at least I am, where I stop thinking. I stop thinking about the possibilities for a player and zero in on the immediate utility of a player, because we're past the halfway point. We're running out of calendar. Can't afford to mess around too much.
True.
So if I would make that trade with you, Chris, I would take Bryce Miller and give you Bobby Miller. I agree Bobby Miller has more upside, but
see, for me, it's just I just don't think Bryce Miller's that useful.
Yeah. It depends on the depth of the league, probably.
Yeah, in like a 12-team league, I'm not that worried that I couldn't stream.
But in a 12-team league, I'm not even sure I'd continue to roster Bobby Miller. So it's, yeah, I get what you're saying, though.
Let's talk about Nick Pivetta, who had a mixed start up against the Oakland A's, 6 2/3, 4 runs allowed, but he had 10 strikeouts. He had 16 whiffs on 105 pitches. He, leaned on the sweeper in this start, and obviously it was really good. It's 10 strikeouts, 2 starts in a row. But 4 earned runs to the Oakland A's.
Yeah.
He's Nick Pivetta, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is like, even last year, he finished with a 4 ERA. That's just kind of always who Nick Pivetta has been. I know he was really good for the final 2 or 3 months, but I think this is what Nick Pivetta is. And what he is a guy who gets a lot of strikeouts and gives up more runs than you want. I think he's a useful fantasy pitcher, especially with that RP eligibility in points leagues. But I don't have some Nick Pivetta is going to be an ace for the next 3 months. I don't have those hopes.
All right. Last of the mixed results, Bailey Ober at the White Sox. He might have expected a little bit more. It wasn't a bad start, but 6 innings, 3 runs, 6 strikeouts. He had 17 whiffs on 84 pitches. And over his last 5 starts, Ober has a 2.16 ERA, a .87 whip, 41 strikeouts over 33 1/3. Are you guys just ready to say Bailey Ober is back in our good graces?
Yeah, I got him right outside the top 40. If that sounds like good graces, to me it is, because I had dropped him outside the top 70, I think, at one point. I've noticed that his success has, broadly speaking, coincided with decreased cutter use, and he threw a ton of cutters in this one. And it wasn't really the pitch that got hit hard; it was the fastball that got hit hard. But it's just, I find it interesting that he brought back the cutter and had worse results.
Yeah, the fastball has been the issue this season for the most part, and it's played much better lately, although it's still probably his worst pitch. I haven't found like a good explanation for why the fastball, like why the introduction of the cutter has coincided with the fastball becoming a problem for him. But you know what, 8 whiffs with the fastball today, a lot of loud contact. I think that's going to be a problem for him. But you know, if he can avoid the contact, I think Bailey Ober's going to be pretty good with the occasional blow up.
Let's get into the rest of the pitching leftovers. We had 3 good and 2 bad on this list. Shota Imanaga, an impressive start at the Orioles. He threw 6 shutout innings with 6 strikeouts. Pablo Lopez was okay at the White Sox, 5 innings, 2 runs, 5 strikeouts. He did have 18 whiffs on 90 pitches. And Zach Eflin turned in a great start versus the Yankees. 7 innings, 2 runs, 1 of those earned with 6 strikeouts, but only 6 whiffs on 103 pitches. Any thoughts on Eflin, Lopez, and Imanaga?
I'm so annoyed at Zach Eflin because, like, I have him in a bunch of leagues, and he's typically at the type of player, the 1-year veteran breakout that I fade, but I liked him a lot this year. And it's like, you know, we've done this like, well, why is like Jake Irvin and all these, you know, mediocre pitchers getting great results? I don't know why Jake Irvin's the one I picked on, but, you know, Tyler Anderson or whoever. And it's like, well, maybe it's, you know, these guys who have really good control and they throw a lot of different pitches and hitters can't get comfortable against. And like, well, that's Zach Eflin. So why hasn't he benefited from it? I think the biggest thing is he's just not throwing his curveball as much as he was last year. It's been like right around 19%. It was 19% in this start. Last year it was about 27%. It's by far his best strikeout pitch and whiff pitch, and his strikeout rate's way down. And I think that those two things are probably related, but I generally think Zach Eflin's going to be very good moving forward. Whether it's ace production, I don't expect that. I don't expect him to be what he was last year, but mid-3s ERAs, very good whip. I do expect that from Zack Eflin.
All right, 2 rough outings. Logan Webb got crushed by the Blue Jays, 5+ innings. He allowed 7 earned runs, which was a season high, and 14 hard hits allowed in this start for Logan Webb. I don't care who you are. You give up that much hard contact, something bad is bound to happen. Gavin Stone has struggled in 2 starts since throwing that complete game shutout. He was at the Phillies. Tough matchup, obviously. So maybe you give him the benefit of the doubt, but 4 2/3 innings, 9 hits allowed, and 4 earned runs. Scott, any lingering concerns here with Gavin Stone or Logan Webb?
Man, I think I missed this Gavin Stone start. I regret speaking of him favorably earlier in the show, given how bad this start was. I don't know. He's been a tough one to figure out. And I would say it continues, because right about the time we were buying in, this is back-to-back clunkers for him, right?
Yep. Since that complete game shutout.
Yeah. And so I guess he's probably back in the droppable category too, because it's not like there are some obvious indicators of dominance here underneath it all that would cause me to have a great deal of optimism for him. How's that? I didn't even know what happened to him until just this second. I think I pulled that analysis out of my butt pretty darn well.
Yeah. Professional.
It's like the best I've ever done.
Yeah.
In that scenario.
Let's get into some hitting leftovers. Brandon Nimmo, all he does is hit home runs. 1 for 4 with his 16th homer. He has homered in 3 straight games. Bryson Stott looks like he might be picking things back up. 2 for 4 with an RBI. He is batting .273 over his last 15 games with 1 homer and 3 steals. Huge
I
game.
have no idea what to do with Bryson Stott in the rankings.
He has been so streaky this year. He
Yeah.
got off to a terrible start, and then he was red hot for like the start of May. And then for the next month after that, he was pretty bad. And now he's been okay over the past 2 weeks.
I just marry him to Ha-Sung Kim, and
honestly,
then I know what to do with him in the rankings.
I do the same. So
yeah,
they're pretty similar players, right? I mean, look,
Kim's been a much better base stealer this season, right?
I don't think so. Stott has 21 steals. He might actually have more. I think Kim actually has hit for more power.
Yeah, Kim only has 17.
Yeah.
I like how he made the exact same noise there, Frank.
Yeah. But
I think that's a tendency I've picked up from you then. When you're second guessing somebody.
I'm not so sure that's the best tendency of mine to pick up, but yeah.
It's fun to me. It's not too judgmental, but it's also not like it's
I don't feel at all
you're going a different direction.
Yeah. I would say my expectation for both of them is around a 250 batting average, 10 to 15 home runs, and 30 plus steals, right? That sounds
right.
Yeah. Huge game for Willy Adames, 3 for 5 with a double, a homer, and 4 RBI. He struggled massively in June, but he has picked things up so far in July. Salvador Perez had a huge day across the doubleheader, 3 for 7 with 2 home runs and 4 RBI. And Marcel Ozuna, who will be competing in the home run derby, turning the power back on. He has 3 home runs in his past 6 games. Let's get into the bullpens because there was a lot happening here. On Wednesday for the Tigers, Jason Foley walked 1, but got the final 2 outs for his 15th save. For the Mariners, Andres Munoz walked 2, but recorded the final 4 outs for his 15th save. For the Mets, Edwin Diaz was unavailable. It was Jose Buto who recorded the final 4 outs for his first save of the season. For the Phillies, Jose Alvarado entered with a 2-run lead in the 8th, facing the heart of the Dodgers lineup. He gave up a run on 2 hits. And then it was Jeff Hoffman who came in for the 9th. He struck out 1 for his 9th save. And Jeff Hoffman is 41% rostered. I think he needs to be rostered in all category leagues. Is that fair?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It was, even before this stretch where he's gotten 4 of the Phillies' last 5 saves, with Alvarado working the 8th in the last 2 of them. So I think I still don't think it's crystal clear that they're going Hoffman full-time closer, Alvarado full-time setup man, but it's, just looking at recent distribution, you'd have to give the edge to Hoffman, who's been the better pitcher this year anyway.
Entering today, a 1.21 ERA, a .88 WHIP for Jeff Hoffman, who is only 54% rostered on Yahoo, and I'm pretty sure those are all category leagues. So yeah, he probably should be rostered in more leagues over on Yahoo. For the Rockies, Jalen Beeks entered the 9th with a 3-run lead. He gave up 2 runs on 3 hits, but picked up his 9th save. For the Yankees, Clay Holmes recorded the final 4 outs for his 20th save, but he owes a big old thank you to Trent Grisham, who made a great catch in center field. 8th inning, Clay Holmes came on, 2 runners on, 2 outs, and Yandy Diaz hit a screaming line drive into the gap, and Trent Grisham made a great play, or else it's a tie game. Maybe the Rays take the lead there, so I still don't think we're in the clear with Clay Holmes. For the A's, Mason Miller gave up a hit, but struck out 2 for his 15th save. For the Royals, I don't know how often we have seen this. I don't know that I've ever seen this. James MacArthur, across a doubleheader, got saves in both games.
I'm sure you've seen it. I'm sure you've seen it.
Does that happen? I feel like I've never seen it.
It happens.
It's definitely happened.
It doesn't. Generally, they'll just work them in one of the games, and so it is kind of rare, I guess. But I'm sure it's happened before. I'm sure I've seen it before. I can't tell you when because I don't.
Camilo
think it was
Doval, July 18th, 2023.
How did you find that so fast?
Yeah, what?
Josh Hader, May 30th, 2022.
I wasn't working that day.
Did you just Google it and somebody has a list up there?
Yeah, Sean Doolittle, July 25th, 2019.
Did a lot that day.
All right, so there was a big gap between, what was it, like 2023 and 2019?
Oh, I don't know if those were the most recent ones. Those are just the first 3 I found.
Fair enough. For the White Sox, game 1 of their doubleheader, Michael Kopech pitched an immaculate inning for his 9th save. The guy has talent. It's, few and far between, but
this is he's like 160th, I think, in reliever WAR this season. And like, if you watched him today, it's like, how does anybody ever hit? He was like pumping 100 easily, throwing like 92-mile-an-hour cutters. Baseball's hard.
Yeah.
You kind of left out the most important detail of this immaculate inning for Michael Kopech.
I was trying to find this.
That's that the last White Sox pitcher to throw an immaculate inning was some guy named Sloppy Thurston in 1923. Which, if you have a name like Sloppy Thurston and you throw an immaculate inning, like that is something to celebrate.
Yeah. Wow. I think I did see a tweet from Chris about it, but I just kind of saw it in passing. So, yeah, shout out to Sloppy Thurston. That's great. For the Twins in game 2 of that doubleheader, it was Yohan Duran who struck out 2 for his 14th save. And for the D-backs, Paul Sewald back on track. He pitched a clean 9th for his 12th save of the season. To stream or not to stream, maybe one of the worst days of the year. No, I lied. I think that's Friday. Actually, no, these aren't so bad. I don't know. You tell me. Thursday, Albert Flores faces the Cubs. Yeah, this is not a good day.
No,
Flores against the Cubs, Savali against the Pirates, and David Peterson against the Nationals. Like, yes,
Suarez. I feel best
Peterson.
about Peterson's okay because the Nationals are bad against lefties.
I think there are 3 or 4 I like more on Friday than anybody on Thursday.
Yes. So let's talk about Friday, where we have Sean Manaea, who's facing the Rockies in New York.
That's one of them.
Have Carson Spires facing the Marlins. We have Andrew Heaney at the Astros. Don't love that. Spencer Schwellenbach at the Padres. And I think
Yadier Rodriguez against the Diamondbacks could be good.
Diamondbacks, man, they are.
Yeah, no, they're super hit or miss, and they can get really hot and put up runs. But I like him better than anyone on Thursday.
I would go for Friday, Schwellenbach, Manaea, Spires in that order.
Sure.
Schwellenbach, Manaea, Spires. Yeah, I guess so. I'm going to disagree, though, that in the next 2 days, I think Albert Suarez against the Cubs is my favorite.
Oh, all right. We are going to wrap there for Scott and Chris. I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify, and we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.